Greetings, YouTube traveler! There will be Fallout 3 spoilers ahead. There are a ton of great and memorable quests and moments from Fallout 3. The one where you stumble upon a unique area of green vegetation and can choose to side with the human tree mutant thing that is in constant agony by killing him, or choose to accelerate his growth and leave some hope of plant life returning to the wasteland. Or the quest where the two knockoff superheroes are fighting in a town, where you can either side with one or kill both of them, are just a couple examples of fantastic side quests in the game out of over a dozen. But my favorite part of Fallout 3 is actually a main story quest found fairly early in the game. Of course, I'm talking about Tranquility Lane, the best quest of Fallout 3. Here's a little backstory for the quest. After exiting Vault 101 after the tutorial quests, most players, including myself, head over to Megaton to find out where your father headed off to when he left so abruptly. From there, you head to Rivet City to find him, but oh no, he's not there either. You're directed to look for him at the Jefferson Memorial, since your father went there to work on Project Purity, a major undertaking to purify the irradiated water of the Potomac so people would finally have clean water. At the memorial, you only find some tapes he left behind, which indicate that he headed to Vault 112 to find research notes of the scientist and leader there, Stanislaus Braun, the creator of the GECK, or Garden of Eden Creation Kit, which is a device needed to get Project Purity up and running. So the player heads over to Vault 112, which is hidden under Smith Casey's garage. It takes about 6 minutes of crossing the cruel and unforgiving wasteland to get there. If you choose to fast travel to Vault 101 first, which I recommend, it's likely the closest available location to Vault 112 for most players. But funnily enough, if you know to go to this garage from the start, you can head there immediately after leaving Vault 101 and skip over 3 entire main quests, though you will miss the achievements for them. After you go down into the basement of the garage, you're greeted with the same kind of vault door that Vault 101 had. You immediately get the feeling that something is off, and a robot soon greets you.
Welcome to Vault 112, resident. According to sensors, you have arrived 202.3 years behind schedule.
You are given a Vault 112 suit to put on, and at this point, you know something is wrong. You keep walking and see a weird circle of pods with a pillar in the center. There's a big, old-timey computer off to the side, and also a terminal corresponding to each pod, which tells you the name of the person inside, as well as their vitals. One of these, T. Dithers, is showing anomalies. You'll also notice one pod has an unknown occupant. At this point, there's nothing else for you to do but get in the pod and see what happens. A loading screen plays, and, different music starts playing. It finishes loading, and the actual Tranquility Lane quest begins. Everything is sepia tone, which can be turned off on PC, but it adds to the old-school feeling of the simulation. The first things you see are a dog, some people walking around, and a little boy at a lemonade stand. It appears you are on a pre-war cul-de-sac of some kind, with a little park in the middle, but there isn't any road leading out of the neighborhood. Since this is the first time in Fallout 3 where you see society from before the bombs dropped, even if it is a simulation, it already feels pretty unique. An old man comes up to you and says,
"Hey there, sport. Beautiful day, isn't it? Say, you should go talk to Betty. She's waiting for you over on the playground. Have fun, sport."
Yeah, so apparently you're a little kid now. You go over to talk with Betty, a little innocent-looking girl, and she tells you to go make Timmy, the kid at the lemonade stand, cry.
All you have to do is make Timmy Newsbum cry.
Well, that's weird. But I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. You have a few options here. You can punch him, probably the quickest and easiest method to make him cry. You can tell him his parents are getting divorced because of him, which he might not believe. Or you can find a military school brochure on the kitchen table of his house and go tell him his parents are going to ship him away, which is my favorite method.
But I don't want to go away. I don't want to leave my mommy.
So after he starts crying, go talk with Betty again, and, well, this happens.
A clever approach. I'm not sure I would have considered it. Very encouraging.
Turns out, Betty is a German-sounding dude. You have a hard time picking which question to ask, since you still don't really know what's going on.
I was known as Dr. Stanislaus Braun.
So, Betty is Dr. Braun. That means Braun is over 200 years old, since he was around to make the Gek before the Great War. Betty then instructs you to break up the Rockwell's marriage, and since you can't really refuse at this point, you accept. At some point, Old Lady Dithers will come up to you and act quite strange. That name should sound familiar because it was the name of the terminal displaying anomalies. She tells you about a failsafe terminal in the abandoned house. You now have a choice to make. Check out what the crazy old lady was saying, or carry on with the task Betty gave. Either path leads to the quest being completed. Let's stick with Betty's task for now. To break up the marriage, you again have multiple options. The simplest is to tell Mrs. Rockwell that Mr. Rockwell is cheating on her, which she will believe. You can also go to their upstairs bedroom and read her diary, where she has written some pretty funny stuff. Taking her advice, proceed to murder Mrs. Simpson with the rolling pin found in the kitchen.
No!
Tell Mr. Rockwell that Mrs. Rockwell did it, and they'll break up.
My God. Janet, what have you done?
What on earth are you talking about, Roger?
How could you? How could you do that to her? Have you lost your mind?
Roger, stop it. You're scaring me.
You should be in a sanitarium or a prison. You're out of your damn mind. You just stay away from me, you hear me?
Or, my favorite way is to go steal the underwear from Mrs. Simpson's bedroom, place it on Mr. Rockwell's desk, and then show Mrs. Rockwell. You can suggest that he is cheating on her, not a bad option, or that he is a cross-dresser. She gets super disgusted by that notion and leaves him.
What the hell is going on?
You pervert. You disgust me. Just stay away from me.
How did it come to this?
All three methods result in Mrs. Rockwell running off to the Henderson house, and a job well done. Betty will now tell you more information about your father. He's been trapped inside the simulation by Dr. Braun. And then she'll give you another task. Kill Mrs. Henderson. Okay then. Like usual, you have some choices to make. The easiest method to kill her is to mess with the chandelier to make it drop on her as she walks under it.
The Henderson estate is in tip-top shape, young master. Have a wonderful day.
You can move the roller skate on the top of the stairs to be in quite a dangerous position. You could also sabotage the oven, rigging it to blow when anyone opens it. Just kindly ask Mrs. Henderson to bake a pie for you, and she won't last long. The last method is a little more complicated, so it's the best. Wait for her to come inside her home, maybe talk to the robot butler by the door if you want, then go over to the security terminal in the kitchen and activate the security program. This will lock down the house and cause the nice robot to kill anyone it sees, though it's not very good at it.
And country.
Unfortunately, you have to kill it afterwards in order to open up the front door of the house again.
I've insulted my honor, and for that,
With your task done, Betty will give you the final thing to do if you want to free your father.
Use the knife to eliminate all the residents of Tranquility Lane.
You get this cool mask and knife from the doghouse. Everyone starts running away and hiding from you, so start chasing and slashing away. The clunky hit detection makes this way funnier than it already is. Just murder everybody in the neighborhood, and you're good. At this point, you've lost a ton of karma, but at least you get to leave with your dad, who, it turns out, was the dog all along. Unfortunately, you don't get to beat up Betty for making you do all that, since this happens. Now you get to exit the simulation, talk to your dad, voiced by Liam Neeson, and continue on with your next quest, never to return to Vault 112, unless you want to for some reason. It's actually a good place to store stuff. But wait! What about Old Lady Dithers in the failsafe terminal in the abandoned house? It turns out, you don't have to do any of Betty's tasks if you activate the failsafe first. And it's not really that hard to do either. Inside the house, you won't see much except for a radio, a drink pitcher, a cinder block, a garden gnome, and a Nuka-Cola bottle. By activating these items in a specific order, you can get to the failsafe. The correct order creates a musical sequence of notes, F, C, D, C, B, A. This just happens to be the same sequence Betty whistles, and it can also be heard in the song playing while in Tranquility Lane. After putting in the sequence, the failsafe terminal pops up, and you have access to a few different things. The Chinese invasion program sounds promising, but if you want to find out more about what's going on behind the simulation, here are your answers. At least, most of them. Dr. Braun seems to have been growing increasingly bored and has turned to sadistically bullying and murdering the occupants of the simulation in order to entertain himself, only to bring them back over and over again with a wiped memory. He has been in here for a very long time, after all. He resets the simulation every once in a while to change the setting to something new. He seems to find Tranquility Lane particularly nice, since the occupants are naturally at home, making toying with them more enjoyable. It also reminds him of his hometown in Germany. You also come to find out from other sources that Dr. Braun had become obsessed with Vault 112 and the virtual reality experiment he had planned for anyone unlucky enough to be chosen for it. As for the actual failsafe, it was installed as a way for Dr. Braun to end it all and permanently kill anyone in the simulation and in real life, if he ever felt like it was necessary. But he forgot that there was a safety mechanism in place that would make it impossible for him to die from activating the failsafe. Everyone else would die, but not him. He writes, "They'd be dead, and I'd be left here in Tranquility Lane, alone and tragically bored for all eternity. I can think of nothing more unacceptable." The failsafe itself is designed to simulate a communist incursion on US soil, so now you have a tough choice to make. Should you let Dr. Braun continue with the simulation, where he will forever be sadistically murdering the occupants over and over for his entertainment until the end of time, or activate the failsafe, which will permanently kill everyone in the simulation in real life, but at least they won't have to deal with Dr. Braun's constant torment? The game seems to think the second option is the right one, since it gives you positive karma for that, and I think I would agree. So you call in the Chinese invasion force, Dr. Braun doesn't seem too happy about your actions.
You ruined everything! Everything!
And you are now free to leave. So as you probably noticed, Tranquility Lane is a happy, carefree society of pre-war America, with the overly joyous music constantly looping, the stereotypical suburban neighborhood, and the naive residents who continuously deny that they are in any kind of simulation.
What? Oh, sweetie. Maybe you should just run along and play. Computer what now? Why don't you go find Timmy and have a nice game of catch?
What? You're weird.
Oh, you're such a kidder.
But this is hilariously juxtaposed with cruelty, infidelity, and mass murder.
Whatever it was, I guess it's gone now. Oh.
You can look a little deeper into this as a satirical commentary on suburban life during the 1950s. Since the timeline of Fallout diverged from our own timeline a little after World War II, the in-game pre-war society was based on 1950s science fiction predicting the future. So pretty much what American society was like during the 50s, but with nuclear fusion powering basically everything, allowing for advanced technology. Tranquility Lane comments on what was really going on behind the facade of 1950s American life. Typically thought of as a time of ease and comfort, the 1950s, just like any other period, had many issues. One of these was the problems introduced by simulated virtual reality. Turns out, living in a fake world to escape your problems for eternity isn't such a good idea. At least, that's what I think this quest is trying to say about 1950s America. There are 2 more details I haven't mentioned yet that make this quest even more enjoyable. As you go along with Betty's tasks, you have dialogue options to grow continuously more enthusiastic, even starting to show that you're having fun with all the terrible things you are doing. That's what a good role-playing game should allow, for you to feel like a villain if you want. The other detail is something found in Rivet City, on Horace Pinkerton's computer terminal. One of his journals says that he went to Vault 112 and stole a memory chip from there and gave it to a synth, on the run from the Institute. This synth, named Harkness, now had a new identity. This ties into the side quest The Replicated Man, where the player must decide the fate of this synth. If you haven't guessed it by now, when Dr. Pinkerton stole the memory chip, he messed up Old Lady Dithers's pod and caused her to know that she was in a simulation. So the decision for his synth to run away to Rivet City caused him to meet with Dr. Pinkerton, who decided to help him out by giving him a new identity by stealing a memory chip from Vault 112, which caused a pod malfunction for Old Lady Dithers that led to the player finding out about the failsafe, which allowed for the eternal suffering of the residents of Tranquility Lane to finally end once and for all. Wow.
The subjects will die and I'll be...
And so, our hero and his father venture forth out of Vault 112 in search of a way to purify the water across the wasteland.
Wish on the moon.
And that is why Tranquility Lane is my personal favorite quest from Fallout 3. Of course, that's just my opinion, and democracy is non-negotiable, so you're free to disagree. If you liked this video, good for you. So, have a nice life.
You'll hear a tune that lives in the heart of a bluebird, and you'll find happy